welcome to the How Not to Screw Up Your Kids podcast, the bucket emptying episodes. I'm your host, Dr. Mary Han, psychologist and parenting expert. So, pour yourself a cuppa, find a comfy seat, and enjoy the conversation. Today, we're talking homework. It's almost like that kind of word that you say under hushed voices, because it usually ends up being either explosive, agitating, tears, tantrums, and everything in between. How do we manage children's homework? Now, I'm often asked this question when I'm in schools, and I will be really honest with you. I think we have to kind of answer this first question, really, and be honest with ourselves. Whose homework is it? Is it yours or is it your child's? And the reality is the homework that has been set by your child's teacher for your child to complete. And I genuinely believe, because it takes a village to raise a child, that if you are battling over homework day in, day out, that this is a conversation that you need to have with school. So it's one of those sort of conversations. I'm not suggesting that conversation with school on its own is going to resolve the matter, but it is important that we keep the dialogue open with school. And that's not a conversation to say, I think you're setting too much homework, I don't think you're setting enough, it's too difficult. It's just simply having the conversation of saying, I've noticed that when my child gets X homework or all homework, this is the response that we get at home. I am currently managing it this way, but I would really welcome any feedback that you have as to what you would like, how you would best handle it. And I think that that's a crucial, important aspect of it, because homework by the school is very much deemed within certain parameters of time. If there is a lot of coaxing and cajoling, if there is a lot of angst and worry around it, then that's really important that school know, because our children very often have this sort of incongruent way of the presenting themselves. So they'll present themselves very cooperatively at school because they want to people please. They want to please their teachers. They want to do the right thing. At home, we get to see them in their full glory. So I definitely, one of the top tips that I would give you is that you need to at least be having a discussion with school. Now, that's not going to resolve it. It's just simply going to put it out in the open. But what it might do is it might create a scenario whereby the teacher is then able to have a conversation with your child if that is something that is going to be helpful in terms of resolving the issues that you have. So that can be a really helpful thing. I think setting the framework and our mindset to recognise that actually this is something that has been set by their teacher for them. So we have to then remove our angst, our worry around our child's performance of it, because it's our child's homework. And if they're struggling with an aspect of a particular topic, it's not our job to fix that. It's our role to create the right environment, the right sort of support network there, and to give prompts and things, but it is not down to us to actually do the homework or to tutor them in that way. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspects that we need to then be looking at is, are we setting the right environment? Are we setting the right tone? Are we creating opportunities for our children to be able to do that? And are we being really clear in managing expectations around that? So let's have a look at how we might do that, because for so many families, it genuinely is a huge battleground around getting homework started. So one of the things that you ought to be looking at is agreeing a time, not specific necessary time, but a time frame within your child's day as to when homework is going to be completed. So that may well be, for some children, as soon as they get home from school. For others, it might be after they've performed certain practices or activities, or maybe they've needed something to eat. I think it's really important that we tailor homework to the individual needs of the child. I say this because I have 2 children, and when I was navigating this particular terrain myself, I found that actually their needs were supremely different. For my son, his natural kind of way of wanting to do it was that he wanted to get home and do his homework. He felt he couldn't begin to relax and enjoy his evening until he had done his homework. So for him, it made the right way of creating the right environment to facilitate homework was one in which there was a space for him to get on with his homework and where he was undisturbed, and it didn't have to be deadly silent. He didn't need that, but he just needed to be left alone. My daughter, on the other hand, was a complete opposite. She needed to decompress. He would come in, still in his uniform, and do his homework. He wouldn't, as far as he was concerned, he was still in his school day until that homework was done. For my daughter, she needed to come home. She needed to go upstairs. She needed to change. She needed to have a bit of a dance around and a bit of a play in her bedroom, come downstairs, have a snack, and then she would do her homework. And I think it's really important that we recognise these differences. We don't have to say, you must come home and you must do it immediately, or you must do it after this time. It is about looking at what works and having problem-solving discussions with your children around where you put that in. Now, there's a couple of caveats. The caveats are that you might have a child who is either a perfectionist or who generally struggles with their work, who will be looking to avoid. They'll be kicking the can down the road. Oh no, I don't want to do it then. I will do it this. And then they'll just keep pushing and pushing and pushing it. Now, of course, we want to help them begin to recognise what works best for them. So that's part of having a repeated conversation. So if you've problem solved and your child has suggested that for them, it works really well once they've eaten, and you try that and that does not work. And when we talk about it doesn't work, it isn't just you did it once and it didn't work, but you've tried several days, a week, maybe 2, and you're still in the same battles. Then you go back and you have that conversation. Like we had a conversation about homework. We agreed that it was going to be done at this time. I've noticed we've been doing this now for 7 or 14 days. And the challenges around you actually coming and sitting and doing your homework or doing it and getting started, whatever the issue is, it's just not happening. So we need to look at other ways that we could be doing this. Is one of the reasons why we've been having battles around getting your homework, is that you actually just don't even know how to start, or you're not feeling very confident, or you're really determined for it to be absolutely perfect, and so you feel paralyzed about starting. You know, our role is not necessarily to fix or to tell our children what happens, but it's about creating the right space, having those conversations, problem solving, helping them maybe consider some of the reasons why you're battling over the homework, and that is why it's being pushed down the road. So that's one of the kind of the important caveats that we need to have around those conversations around the timing of homework. The other thing to remember is that our children might have very busy work schedules around activities and other things that they do from school. So it's also really important to have an honest look at what their schedule looks like. So are you having battles with your child over homework? Because the reality is they're pushing back because they have no time to decompress. And that's the issue. In which case, then I think you have to sort of reflect on what their whole week looks like, because it is a balance. It's important that they get to do activities that they love and that really bring them joy, whilst also balancing time for that homework to happen. So it's about, is there an issue that you need to communicate to schools so that they can also understand that there's battles? It's looking at individually for each child, what do they need from us to create the best environment for them to do, for them to actually do their homework. It's about remembering that it is their homework and not ours. So it's meant to be a reflection of their ability and their capabilities of taking a problem or a set of questions and working through them themselves. By all means, be there to help for them to bounce ideas around. But fundamentally, it is their work which needs to be done. And then the final thing that I would say around homework is that it's actually really crucial to encourage our children to see it in the perspective that it is intended. So this may well be if you've got a child who's a perfectionist, maybe you've got a child who really doesn't value, they're not particularly confident about their academic abilities. It's about contextualizing that piece of work is a piece of independent work that they have been asked to complete. And what it does is it's not an assessment, it's not a judgment, although it will obviously feel that way to some children, but simply an opportunity for their teacher to understand where they are at in their current learning on that particular topic. So if you have got a child who's really struggling with it, who is either paralysed about starting it because they think that they're rubbish or whatever that might be. It's helping them reframe what they've been asked to do from the perspective of, this is something I've been asked by my teacher, and what I'm doing in the process of doing this homework is providing them some feedback as to where I'm at with my learning and what extra help or support that I might need, what I've retained from the lesson, what I've understood, and what I still need some work around in order to understand the subject. It's all of that linking back to that growth mindset, this idea if I just do things often enough, my brain is a muscle, and like every muscle, the more I exercise it, the stronger it becomes. So I hope that's really helpful, because I know homework is such a massive, massive battleground. If you have got some specific questions around homework, then please do write in. It's contact@drmaryhan.com, and we can incorporate that into another episode. This episode was much more to give you some general feels about homework, to give you some things that you can get started with. But if you've got really specific questions, then do by all means send those in. As ever, if you have enjoyed this podcast, I would be eternally grateful if you could follow, rate and review this podcast so that others can find us and we can spread the love. So until next time.